This book shook me to my core. I read it in a sitting. I devoured it, if you will. Hi everyone, I'm Hayley. Welcome back to my channel. So I am here to give you a bunch of sapphic book recommendations. Also, if you don't know what sapphic is, my definition is like woman-loving woman, but I feel like it also encapsulates like non-binary people who love women and non-binary people. I still identify as bisexual, but I feel closer to the term sapphic. That feels like the most to me. I just thought it would be great to have an entire video dedicated to sapphic reads. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Book of the Month. I love Book of the Month, and I'm going to tell you all about Book of the Month and why they're so amazing. And I'm going to let you know about their February picks. So let's get into it. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover books they love. Every month, their teams vet hundreds of books and curates a list of new and early release titles so that you can spend less time researching and more time reading. Book of the Month is risk-free, so you can skip any month, anytime, and you will not be charged. They have the best price for new release hardcover fiction. You can get your first book for just $9.99 with the code Hayley. So yeah, Book of the Month is incredible because you can get new release hardcover fiction, sometimes debut, sometimes early, for just $9.99 when you sign up with them for the first time. I would not skip out on that deal. It's a great deal. A lot of books that are hardcover are at least $20. Sometimes adult books are like $30. So if you want to save some money, sign up for Book of the Month and use my code Hayley. Today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 picks that they have for February. Their literary fiction pick is Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. This darkly humorous exploration of gender and power follows a cantankerous female professor in the midst of a scandal. Oh my god, wait, a scandal? Does the scandal have to do with this person on the cover? Because it's getting a little saucy. Their historical fiction pick, Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. What do you say to someone you loved but failed? Here, a father uses letters to express his love for his estranged son. And I also feel like this is just going to hurt me a lot, but maybe it will also heal me. I hope it hurts me, which I know probably sounds weird, but personally, I love a book that will make me upset and potentially make me cry. Like, it's hard to make me cry nowadays, but like, if this one makes me cry, it's a winner. Their fantasy pick, A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Unexplained disappearances draw a reluctant hero back to his island home to confront spirits in this spellbinding tale. Their thriller pick, The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan. The twisty tale of a therapist with unconventional methods trying to unlock the mystery of a perfect marriage. Last but not least, we have their historical fiction pick, Peach Blossom Spring by Melissa Fu. This multi-generational epic traces the enthralling story of a mother and son who journey from China to America. This book is also a debut and it's an early release title, so if you pick this book and get it from Book of the Month, you will get it early. And it's also a debut. You would be supporting an author of color who is debuting with their first book. Those are the Book of the Month picks for February. If any of those books sound interesting to you, or if Book of the Month sounds interesting to you at all, which it should, then you should definitely click the link in my description and use my code Hayley to sign up and get your first book for just $9.99. $9.99. I cannot stress to you enough how great of a deal that is. Seriously, take advantage of it now. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the rest of the video. I have almost 40 books on this list and I do not want to be here for hours talking about this. I don't want to edit a video for hours. I've also talked about a lot of these books like 1,000 times on my channel before, so if you want to hear an in-depth review or in-depth thoughts on these books, for each book that I mention in this video, I will link a video where I talk about that book. So first up, I'm going to start with young adult contemporary sapphic reads. First up, I have How to Make a Wish by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a basically like strangers to friends to lovers sapphic story. The main character is bisexual and it takes place in like a small town and it deals a lot with family dynamics and healing, mental health, and overcoming and healing from grief. And it's just a really beautiful story and it's so cute. I remember reading this. I was just so happy the whole time. It was like one of the first sapphic books I ever read and it just made me so happy. The next book I have is She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quindlen. I adore this book. It's enemies to lovers, fake dating, and it has like a cheerleader and a basketball player that decide to fake date. They're enemies, and when they get into a little accident in the parking lot, they're forced to carpool because one of their cars is in the shop. They need to make it up to each other because they had this accident in the parking lot. I actually laughed while reading it and I just had a great time. Like I read it in like one sitting. It's super fun. It's so cute. I love it. The next book I have is also by Kelly Quindlen. It's Her Name in the Sky, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Y'all would know I talk about this all the time. This book is amazing. It's best friends to lovers, and it's so emotional. Like, it's so painful, but then it also mended my soul. Like, it broke my soul, but it mended me, you know? And I love a book that does that. I will say, like, there are trigger warnings for some homophobia, and there's a lot of like religious trauma that goes on in this book, but it is so beautifully written, and it's just a beautiful story, and I love it so much. If you love best friends lovers, sapphic best friends lovers, you can never go wrong with that. I want to read more, so if you have recommendations, please let me know, because I would love to read more. The next book I have is Not My Problem by Sierra Smith or Kira Smith. I want to say it's like enemies to lovers / rivals to lovers, depends on what you think. I think in the synopsis it technically is like they're enemies, but I feel like reading the book they're more like rivals to lovers. But it's about this girl named Aideen. She kind of is having a difficult time controlling her own life, so she hatches this plan to like start helping people in her class and in her grade with their problems. And so it's like, instead of solving her own problems, she's like solving other people's problems, and she's like getting paid for it. Or they're doing favors for her. She ends up having to work with her arch nemesis / rival, Maeve. And it's just so funny. Like, this book is so funny, and it's so casually queer, which is like one of my favorite things to read about, because obviously it's hard to read about like queer trauma. You know, sometimes it's necessary. Like, it's necessary to read about the struggles and to see people overcome those struggles, and to, you know, be immersed in the reality that is the queer experience. But I also love to have a nice break from that, and I get to read stuff like this book that is super fun and super lightweight. It does deal with tough stuff. Like, there's a lot of like family drama in this book, but it still is super lighthearted, and it made me so happy. Like, it actually made me laugh out loud, which is very rare for books. The next book I have is Clapping You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a book told in verse. I mean, Elizabeth Acevedo is an incredible writer, first of all. She just has such a talent with words and crafting stories. This book is kind of a lot though, because it has to do with two sisters who are completely estranged, like they've never known about each other until their father dies, and that brings them together because they're like forced to come together and like deal with their father's death and deal with, you know, how their different families are going to cope with that. This book is not a romance. Can we circle back? Not My Problem is not a romance, but it does have a romance in it. And just like this book, like Clap When You Land isn't a romance, because it really is about connecting with your past and reconnecting with family members and just like building new connections and strengthening bonds that you already have. But this book does have a sapphic main character. Like, one of the protagonists is in an established sapphic relationship. Elizabeth Acevedo has like never, ever disappointed me, ever. Like, she's amazing. I've read 3 of her books now, and I've loved every single one of them. The next book I have is technically not even a contemporary, but it's a historical fiction. And it is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This book I also want to say is not quite a romance, because even though it does have like a sapphic main character and a sapphic romance in it, the book is mostly about coming of age and growing up in a time where identity is so heavily emphasized. This book takes place in 1950s San Francisco, which, hello, San Francisco is like my home. The main character is the daughter of Chinese immigrants, and obviously, like back in the 1950s, there's a lot of stuff going on with like the Red Scare, and there's a lot of racism towards Chinese people. It's just like following this young girl figuring out her sexuality and also like growing into her own identity. I just love how this book deals with so many important parts of a human identity, specifically in the US, because I feel like a lot of times historical fiction is so whitewashed and almost glamorized, but with this book, it's so honest about the struggle that most people, marginalized people, face in history. And so it's like, you do get to see those little pockets of happiness while she's like discovering herself and building new relationships, but it still is very realistic in the sense that there are hard things that she has to go through. Lastly, for my YA contemporary sapphic recommendations, I have The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. This book is also not a romance, does have a sapphic main character and a sapphic relationship in it that is already established, like before the book even starts. This book is about the daughter of a con artist that gets taken hostage during a heist. So the book takes place in the span of just a few hours, but she's like in this heist with her girlfriend and her ex-boyfriend and like some other random people, and there are lots of flashbacks to her life and like her mom, who's like a con artist, and It's very intense. This book is actually being turned into a movie that's gonna star Millie Bobby Brown. Fun fact. Yeah, it's a fun book. Really, I remember on like the first page, I was like about to tear up because of the way that their relationship was described, like the main character and her girlfriend. I was just like, oh my god, this is incredible. Now we move on to young adult sci-fi / fantasy recommendations. First up, I have The Abyss Surrounds Us by Emily Skrutsky. This book is a dystopian novel that takes place in the future. It's in the future. Just assume things are bad. The US in the future, just assume things have gotten worse. This is an enemies to lovers story as well. I know y'all love enemies to lovers. Follows a girl who I believe actually is Chinese. More intersectionality. Love that for us. The main character is a monster trainer because in this world, a lot of people are living on boats, and these boats are guarded by these big sea monsters. The book is like about how she gets kidnapped and taken hostage by these pirates that are trying to take control of these sea monsters because they want to use these sea monsters as weapons essentially. And so they basically take her name is Cassandra. I don't know why I didn't say that, but the main character Cassandra, they take her on the pirate ship and they're like, you need to help us train this sea monster so that we can use it to take over and cause damage. And she's like, I'm not gonna do that. And they're like, nah, we'll kill you. So, you know, enemies to lovers, it's a thing. It was fun. Like if you love some monsters and if you love sapphics and enemies to lovers, then this is great for you. Also pirates. So next we have Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan. Girls of Paper and Fire follows this girl who is violently abducted from her family and taken to be a gift for the king. And so this book does deal very heavily with sexual assault. So if that's not something that you can read about, or if that's something that triggers you, then I would definitely take caution when reading this book, or maybe just skip it altogether. This book is so well written because not only does it subvert many big tropes that almost feel like cliches, but it's also sapphic. And the world building is so immersive. Like I love the writing in this book. I think the sapphic relationship is great. Personally, I love fantasy books because I love a side of romance. I do love romance books, yes. But I love when a book has a side of romance because then it's like you're always wanting more, and it always is just so satisfying when you get those little pieces of romance. You know, that's what this book gave me. Like it was slow burn, and the book very much so dealt with like individual growth and healing before it went into trying to like shove a relationship in your face. The writing was just fantastic. I thought it was very immersive and it's a great book. So the next book that I have is The Midnight Lie by Mary Rachkowski. Is it technically a duology? Yes. Do I like the second book? No. I call this a standalone. It is a fantasy book. And it takes place in a society where social hierarchies are a huge thing. And the main character is basically at the bottom of that social hierarchy. So life for her is like very tough and unfair. She essentially wants to like break out of that. She basically wants rights. Actually, that's what it is. I don't really know how to explain it other than that. This book isn't like super heavy on the plot. That's one thing. It's just the writing and the characterization that's so good. Like Mary Rachkowski is a fantastic writer, and I just love the romance in here. Like it's so subtle, but it's like very sensual, and I don't know, it's just great. It's just so well written. Next up I have Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bastardust. This book is, I guess, also like enemies to lovers because it's about a girl who is locked away because she has these really dangerous poisonous powers that kill people whenever she touches them. And so she's locked away. She's not allowed to go anywhere, do anything, but she's like forced to watch her brother like have this happy life taking over their kingdom. And one day there is a beast that is captured. The girl goes down to the dungeons and finds out that this beast might have an idea as to how she can break her poisonous curse. And so, you know, against all of her family's morals, she's like, well, I mean, I really want to know, because she's like tired of being locked away for something that like isn't even her fault, and obviously wants to rid herself of this curse. But then also at the same time, she's like, what if I don't want to rid myself of this curse? And what if I'm actually supposed to live with it and just like be who I am, whether that turns into a corruption arc, a villain arc or not? I enjoyed it. It wasn't like my favorite book in the world, but I did enjoy it. Like it's a standalone. It was a quick read, and you know, the romance was cute. The next book I have is Crier's War by Nina Varela. This is an enemies to lovers sci-fi book. I know y'all hear about this because I feel like Crier's War was like the #1 book people would recommend whenever people were looking for sapphic books, because it's like the only book people know about. It takes place in a world where androids are basically like the ruling class, and they're pretty oppressive towards humans. So the humans come up with a plan to kill the android princess in order to like topple the android rule over humans. And so the main character is human and she sets out to kill this princess. But you know what happens when there's more to the story and they maybe fall in love? I don't know. Okay, so now we're moving into the adult section. I'm going to start out with contemporary reads. First up is a book that I recommended on TikTok that a lot of people were so excited and grateful that I recommended. And I'm grateful that I found this book. And I found it because of Mina Reads. Go follow her. This book is Party Favorites by Erin McClellan. It's a novella. It's a smutty holidays novella. It takes place over New Year's. It's best friends to lovers. It's smutty. It is like the first like explicit sapphic sex that I have read. Oh my god, that was almost like a tongue twister. Because so many of these times I'll be reading a sapphic book and then it's fade to black and I'm like, why? Why would you do that to me? This one, not fade to black. And I mean, they got it is intense. It is some of the best smut I've ever read. I gotta be honest. It's very intense and it's good. Yeah, it's really good. This is what I always recommend to people whenever they're like, I want to read a smutty book. I'm like, read this one. You're welcome. Next up, I have Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. We all know how much I love this book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I've talked about it 1,000 times. This book is so beautiful. It has some of the most incredible writing I've ever read, and it's so relatable. I feel like this book was just written for me in terms of how it deals with mental health and being a queer Black woman and trying to deal with pressures not only from your family and people that you love, but also just from society because of who you are as a person and who people expect you to be. It's also not really a romance. Like, yes, there is a sapphic romance in here because the book literally starts out with the main character impulsively getting married to a complete stranger in Vegas. And that kind of sets off a lot of things in her life because, you know, she's a perfectionist and she deals with anxiety and depression and having to face so much pressure from her dad. And so this is like a rebellion against all of what her dad has basically stood for. I know it sounds like a lot. It's like, wait, this book is about mental illness, but there's a Vegas marriage. Yeah. You know, if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. Cool girlies understand Honey Girl and love Honey Girl, okay? I made that rule, and if you follow me, you have to stand by it. Sorry, not sorry, that's just the rule. Anyway, okay, the next book I have is also a smutty novella, and it's Treasure by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is a great smutty novella. Both of these characters are college students. One of them is a stripper. There's positive sex work rep in this book. Also, it has two Black women in love, which, I mean, that should be enough. This book is sex positive. It has two Black women in love. It's sapphic. What else do you need? Also, super short. Like, I read it in one sitting, so great read. Next book I have is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I've also talked about this book a lot. I love this book. This is like a lot of stories mixed into one because it deals a lot with family dynamics and it has a lot of different like vignettes from different family members, and one of the family members is sapphic, and so it talks about her coming into terms with her sexuality and being in a relationship with another woman. That's not like the main part of this book, like it's a very small part of this book, but I thought I would include it just because I feel like I don't see a lot of Black women and sapphic relationships in books. So when I was reading that, I'm like, I wish someone had told me that this book had a sapphic relationship. I would have picked it up sooner. So I'm like, let me add this to my sapphic show because people gotta know. But also I love this book. It's also one of my favorite books of all time because it deals so well with intergenerational trauma and the Black experience in the US. I adore this book, and it's also so beautifully written, wonderful, amazing, stunning prose. The next book I have is The Rise of Kiyoshi by F.C. Yee. If you are a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, then you already know who Kiyoshi is. Kiyoshi the baddie. Kiyoshi, the baddest avatar out there. She is an icon and she is the moment. And this book follows young avatar Kiyoshi and basically a best friends lovers slash guard slash royalty sapphic romance. Wait, why is this an adult contemporary? I literally just realized this should be a young adult fantasy. Oh my god, that is embarrassing. Why did I do that? All right, so the next book is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This book, it literally is my brand. It is my brand. This book is about murderous women. Also, if you don't know, I have a book club on Fable called Dangerous Women where we read about the baddest woman in literature. So click the link in my description and join it. Murderous women, come on now. And sapphics. This book follows a college professor who goes around murdering men, bad, evil men, and it's great. The next book that I have is The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. This book is like historical fiction surrounding the hysteria about like witchcraft back in like hundreds of years ago, you know, when people were like going crazy about witches and thinking that women were evil. Yeah, it's about that. It was beautifully written. It's a bit slow in my opinion, but it was a great concept, and it is sapphic, which always wins extra points for me. I included it because I think that there are some historical fiction baddies out there that might like it. Now we move on to adult sci-fi and fantasy. The Jasmine Throne by Natasha is inspired by the history and epics of India, which is so cool because I feel like so many fantasies are like pseudo-medieval Europe, but now we get a new culture represented in the fantasy world, which is amazing. It's actually the first book in a trilogy, which I don't know why I didn't say that earlier, but it's the first book in a trilogy. And you know what? This book is fire because it deals with badass women with daggers, swords, whatever, and then sapphics. But you know what? This one has amazing court politics or political intrigue, whatever you want to call it. I call it both because personally, I think both deserve rights. World building, so rich, so immersive, you lose yourself in it. Also, I want to say they're kind of like rivals to lovers, and it's like very, very slow burn. So if you're into that, read The Jasmine Throne by Natasha. The next, we have The Bone Short Daughter by Andrea Stewart, which is also one of my favorite fantasy books. This book made me so happy when I was reading it because it has a sapphic character, yes, but that sapphic character is in an already established relationship at the beginning of the book. And I love it so much because I never read about that. And it's like, again, casual queerness. Like, she is just in a relationship, just living her life. You get to see how the things going on, like the plot and the politics and her role in society as like daughter of an important person. I don't know why I phrased it like that, but you know what I mean, politics. How that affects her relationship, and how as the book shifts and as she grows and changes, how her relationship evolves, and I love it. This book is actually multiple point of views. That's just one of them. It's a fantasy book with this insane, amazing world whose setting I believe is based on East Asia. It's just so immersive. This book is amazing. I love it. I still haven't read the second book. I know I'm a fraud. Also, there is an amazing animal companion character. Next up, I have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which we know this is one of my favorite books of all time. I also feel like I've said that like 8 times in this video. Ignore it. I love this book. It is a lyrical reimagining of Dracula and his brides. It's smutty, it has polyamory, and beautiful writing, and vampires. Literally the most beautiful writing I think I've ever read in my life. This book shook me to my core. I read it in a sitting. I devoured it, if you will. The next book is another book that I adore. Into the Drowning Deep by Mary Grant. I think I need to reread this book. It actually makes me mad that there is not a sequel. And I know there's supposed to be a sequel in the works. It makes me mad that I don't have one currently. I also want this book to be adapted into a miniseries like on HBO. Are you kidding me? That would be so fucking good. It's so good. Okay, this is a horror book about murderous mermaids. Okay, it's about this team of people that goes into the Mariana Trench and is like, we're gonna figure out if these mermaids actually exist. And it's bloody, it's thrilling, it's so exciting. If you're gonna read this book, I really recommend the audiobook because it was like a total out-of-body experience. I was having the time of my life. I adore this book, and it is sci-fi, which again, some people were saying that like the science information was boring or it weighed the book down. No, I was so fascinated, and I thought it added so much to the story, and it made everything so much creepier because once you understand what's happening, it's like, damn, these people really might die. Anyway, very high stakes, amazing. One of the characters is bisexual and another one is lesbian. You get multiple different point of views, so like there's some of those multiple point of views, and then there, you know, obviously sapphic characters and sapphic relationships. Fantastic book. The next book is The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nevo. The Chosen and the Beautiful is a BIPOC queer reimagining of The Great Gatsby, and it has little fantasy elements. Jordan Baker is the main character, and she is a magician of sorts. Like, she can do some very interesting magic. Again, beautiful prose. I love the writing in this book, and I do like The Great Gatsby, which I kind of feel embarrassed saying because I feel like so many people hate it, but I love The Great Gatsby. I just love the aesthetic of the 1920s. Like, I'm currently writing a book set during the 1920s, and so it's so interesting to get to see a queer woman of color's perspective during that time and how that time really affected her and other marginalized communities. I really love this book. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it, but now hopefully me adding it to this list will get more people excited about it. Next up, I have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Another book I have also talked about 1,000 times on my channel, but this book has sapphics and dragons. Beautiful writing, intense political intrigue, court politics, so much amazing immersive world building and lore. I mean, this is an epic fantasy book that just has everything. The second I opened this book and read the first paragraph, I was like, yeah, this book is a baddie. And I knew she was gonna do it for me. And she did. Literally, I just need sapphics, a woman with knives, sapphics, badass woman, and dragons. That's all you need. That's all I need. The next book I have is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. So this is the first in a fantasy trilogy inspired by the pre-Columbian Americas. So, you know, pre-colonization. We love that. We get a lot of indigenous inspired cultural aspects in this book, and it's so cool because it deals with like celestial prophecies, political intrigue, which is my favorite thing ever. One of the other best things, forbidden magic. Get this, one of the characters is a bisexual pirate. Yeah, that's right. She is a bisexual pirate. Delilah, she's a baddie. Also, I forgot to say that the Midnight Light has seafaring sapphics. Also, so does The Abyss Surrounds Us. But I felt like that was implied because they're pirates. Okay, and then the last book I have in my adult sci-fi fantasy section is a sci-fi book called This Is How You Lose a Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. This is a really short read. I think, does it count as a novella? But it's a short book. I read it in one sitting. Again, it has some of the most stunning prose I've ever read in my life. Is it hard to understand at times? Yes. But all you need to know is that this is a sci-fi book and it follows two people on opposite sides of a war. They're basically trying to kill each other, but they're also very infatuated with each other and in love. It almost feels like two rivals or two enemies writing each other love poems. That actually I think is what the book is. I thought it would be interesting to also talk about my TBR because there are some books that I wanted to mention because I feel like I will want to recommend them one day, but I haven't read them yet. But also, is that just me being ambitious? I don't know. But I thought, you know, why not bring awareness to some of these books? I'm gonna also go in the same order that I went in before. Sapphic Contemporary YA TBR. Late to the Party by Kelly Quindlen. Kelly Quindlen, I believe, is the queen of Sapphic romance. So I just want to read all of her books. I don't know what it's about, but it's Kelly Quindlen, so I'm gonna read it. The next book I actually started reading because I have an arc of it. It's Ophelia After All by Racquel Marie. This is a coming of age YA book about a girl discovering herself and her sexuality, dealing with family and friendships, and I'm so excited. I started it, I read the first 2 chapters and I already am really enjoying it, so I can't wait to read the rest of it. Moving on to young adult sci-fi fantasy TBR. I'm so excited. First up, I have The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. I do not know what this book is about at all, literally at all. The publishers reached out to me and were like, pick some books that you want. And what I do when I pick books, because I don't have time to read every synopsis, is I'll just go through all of them and be like, okay, which ones are by Black people and which ones are queer? This is queer, so I picked it. It's specifically, it's sapphic. I actually believe it's a fairy tale retell. Is it Rumpelstiltskin retelling? Oh my god, wait. It's not Rumpelstiltskin. I don't know why I thought it was Rumpelstiltskin, but it is fairy tale inspired. It's comped as Sleeping Beauty meets Indiana Jones. I love Indiana Jones. And then my next, literally, I think this is my most anticipated read of 2022. The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix. You guys don't understand. This book is bringing the sapphic feral energies, sapphic rage, enemies to lovers, murderous woman. I'm so excited. It's about a blood witch who is assigned to marry the prince, but she actually is going in to kill him, and there's like a plague going around and people want to burn witches. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. Like, the world building sounds insane. I haven't read it yet. It's not even out yet. Do I want an arc? Yes, I would sell my soul for an arc. I am so excited for this book. The cover was just revealed and I cannot wait. We have sapphic adult contemporary reads that I'm excited for. I'm excited for Tristix Venom by Penelope Douglas. I have read 3 of Penelope Douglas's books before. I've enjoyed some of them, did not like one of them, But the one thing I can say that is always consistent with Penelope Douglas is that their smut is phenomenal. Penelope Douglas writes amazing smut. I want to read more sapphic smut. Therefore, I believe this book will have amazing sapphic smut, and that's why I want to read it. The next book that I have on this list is Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandra Bellefleur. I believe it's a second chance romance, and I believe it might also be enemies or rivals to lovers. Okay, the next book that I have is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I have read Ashley Herring Blake's YA before and I loved it, so I'm really excited to read her adult contemporary romance. I believe there will be good smut in this and I can't wait. I don't know what any of the tropes are, but I know one of the sapphic main characters has tattoos and combat boots. I'm excited for that. Lastly, I have The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This is a sapphic historical romance. It seems like there's going to be sapphic smut, which I want. I don't know what this book is about either, but on the cover there are two women who look like they're very much so in love. For my sapphic adult sci-fi / fantasy, we have She Who Became the Sun by Shelly Parker Chan. I've heard this book is beautifully written. I've heard it's like a queer Mulan meets The Song of Achilles, so I'm expecting it to break my heart, but also be so beautiful that I like kind of don't care, but I'm also like crying extra hard because it's so beautifully written. Very excited. I also heard there is I'm not going to say it. I think I will get demonetized. But I swear whenever you look up this book, it's like one of the first things that comes up in terms of smut. So there's smut in this book. That's exciting. You know what I forgot to add on here? Oh my God, I forgot to add Aurora's Angel. So if you like fairies or if you like wing play, if you like sapphics, if you like fantasy romance and sapphics and smut, then Aurora's Angel is for you. The last book that I want to read, last sapphic adult fantasy book that I want to read is Malice by Heather Walters. Apparently, this is great. This is like a magical retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but about a princess falling for the evil sorceress. Corruption arc, villain romance, I mean. But anyway, I have been filming for way too goddamn long. It's time to end this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you find a book that you love. Please, if you have any sapphic book recommendations, please leave them down below. I'm always looking for more book recs. Follow me on Goodreads and follow me on Fable. I have an entire list of sapphic books on both of my accounts there. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you next time with another video. Bye.